What's up guys, it's Eddie. Gonna go ahead and give you my actual rundown of what I've been waiting for actually a long time for, which was the Pimax Crystal. I followed this way when I was looking into even the Reverb G2. Somebody was telling me about the 8K and there was a whole bunch of different types of things, and I just got this just a couple days ago, and I just want to give you a fair and honest rundown of what I think. Now this is going to be a little bit of a loaded review only because I started off with VR. I flew in the A10 in DCS and Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's what I actually started off with. Did some VR in some other games like Dirt Rally and whatever. So I knew what VR was like, and I knew how immersive it felt, and I loved it. I loved it, I loved it. But it still was very, very hard to see in this type of vision, okay, which is what the G2 really is. Now, even though it's 2K per eye and it was 4K lenses, great headphones, great microphone, and fairly lightweight, but this is what it always felt like doing. So when you're looking around, this is pretty cumbersome when you're actually looking at targets in the sky, for example. The other thing is, when I tried this headset for the first time, first off, I mean, it is a better quality visual experience, there's no doubt about that. And the speakers are okay. I didn't even know they actually included them because they changed the model of what they are. I guess this is the newer version. But the one thing that I can say just right off the top, the form factor of this is just ginormous. I mean, it really is tough to wear in comparison to the Reverb G2. G2, I feel like I can just kind of put it on my face and it just kind of fits, and it's not really that heavy. It's not as great as this visually, but it also is half the weight and it just doesn't feel like that. But that being said, I didn't intend to go to monitors. It was kind of an accidental thing. As a matter of fact, it was because of the delay in the Pimax for such a long time that I ended up getting two TVs, one for my wife and then one for down here, and I kept the 75-inch, but then I thought, well, if I just got one more TV of the exact same model during a Black Friday sale, why not put triple monitors up and have three 75-inch TVs? I've got the space to do it, why not? So I did. And that's exactly how I ended up with this particular situation. It's honestly, I never would have had these if this came out earlier. That's just the truth. Those are my cats playing in the background. But, has to be playing with the rattler of all things. Okay, so back to this. I wrote down pretty much trying to be fair on all sides of this. Now, you cannot start with this setup and then go to VR. VR is cool. For a lot of different things. Basically, the 3D wrapping and the level of it feels tighter in the cockpit. So, like for example, if you've never, like if you only just flown like on a just regular computer monitor your entire life and then got into something like this, and you didn't have a lot of control surfaces, you just basically had your HOTAS and stuff like that that you could just memorize with your fingers. You never had to take off your mask to do anything. If that's your experience going from a regular monitor without triple monitors and whatever, to a VR headset like this, there's no question you're going to love it. You're going to absolutely enjoy it. May still have to deal with, you know, the big bulkiness thing in there, but you will get over that pretty quick. Now, the things that you're going to lose, I'll get into those in a bit, but just, you know, be fair, most people know this, it's got one-to-one head tracking. You move this way, you're looking this way, okay? To where something like Track IR, you can do this and look all the way behind your head, you know, right behind the head. Or the back of the plane, just by doing something as subtle as this. Okay, Tobii Eye Tracker has options where it just looks, you know, you do your eyes and everything like that. I know this has a feature where you can turn something like that on, but essentially this is one-to-one. So if you're looking straight up, you're doing this, you're doing that. Now, if you were like me back in the 90s, yeah, that was me. Your neck is not as great as it used to be when you were 17, 18 years old, you know, headbanging. So this kind of flying, where you're doing this in a dogfight, you're going to get sick of that real quick with this kind of weight on your head. I mean, 5 pounds of a headset is a lot to strain your neck out, and it's just not as enjoyable as just being able to just do something like this or do something like this very, very easily. And I'll explain once the monitors are on. But it does have an incredible feel. So when you're like looking at like, you know, the upfront controllers in like the A10 or for the F14 or F15, you got those big things that's sticking out, and when you move your head a little bit side to side, you can kind of see the side, and it feels like it's really there. That's the cool part. Here's the downside to that though. You can't touch it. Now I actually have a physical MFD, which is physical. It's reality, not virtual reality. And so when I'm sitting in front of it, it's right there in front of me in real life. So I actually do get to interact with it, okay? So it's a little bit of a difference, you know, again, if you don't have this, you won't miss this, you won't really care, because everything that you do inside the cockpit, essentially, at the end of the day, you have to do with the mouse, okay? Now, once you get used to this and having all these buttons where you can use 2 buttons at the same time and set your planes up and do, you know, TOO mode and instant fuse and just, you know, cycling through all this kind of stuff and pushing on it, you can set up your plane like that, okay? Really, really fast. But, you know, that being said, depth perception in this is really, really good. I landed on the carrier in a case 3 dark, you know, situation, came right down. And it really does help with the depth perception when you're having to really get into tight things like, you know, formation flying, those type of things. So there is something to this that these just don't give you because they're flat, okay? Now, here's the pro of also this. This right here, you know, I guess it retails about $1,500. You do have to buy some extra stuff, but I actually got it on a deal recently, which made it really actually, the reason I pulled the trigger on it was only $13.49. It wasn't a Black Friday sale, it was just $13.49. So I don't know why it was $200 and something off, but it was. So I jumped on it. So you don't have to have a massive room. This would take up an entire bedroom if you were to try to do this, okay? You need TV stands, you need all these different types of rigs, you need, first off, you have to buy the TVs. These TVs were $1,500 to $1,800 brand new a piece. So one of these TVs is as much as one of these. So you don't have to buy 3 TVs to do this. And again, this has got the, as you know, speakers and the microphone are built into the unit, so you don't have to have any extra, you know, headphones or anything like that, which those weren't cheap. And the other thing that's a really big pro, okay, if you don't care about getting all these upfront controllers and all these little button boxes and everything like that, when you put this on, you're in a KA-50, you're in a Black Hawk, you're in an A-10, you're in a Harrier, you're in all these different types of things, and you feel like you're actually there. That's where this thing, even though I have an F-18 Essential kit, I know they got an F-16 coming, you know, for the upfront controller from Winwing, but it really does let you feel like you're sitting in those planes. So even if you just wanted to be in the plane to kind of feel what it feels like for the engineering that they put into VR technology, it's worth probably keeping just for the feel of just getting into that plane. So I would say if you're looking around and you want to do it, if you didn't mind having to click everything with the buttons, this right here is something that probably would almost make me keep it just for that reason, because there's so many different aircraft, not including Microsoft Flight Simulator, but there's also games like Beat Saber and different types of things to enjoy. It's just that the downer of this thing is so damn heavy. So that's tough. Okay, so that being said, that's a big, big plus. It's one of the reasons that I would actually consider keeping it, simply because it really, when you sit inside those planes, that's what it feels like to be in that plane. You really feel wrapped into it. But yeah, those are the pros. Those are the pros. Now, the cons. I cannot, when I have this thing on my head, I cannot feel, even people say, oh, you get muscle memory. No, it takes too long. If you hit the wrong button and you go to the wrong page, then you have to hit another button back and find that button to go to the menu page and then cycle it again and kind of do the Braille approach. And it's just, that's a waste of time. And you're not going to want to take this thing off. The reverb, you could literally just do this. It was that loose. It was an easy headset to take on and off. This has that clamp in the back that goes all the way in the back of your head like this, so it holds it in place. You can't just easily take this thing off. You have to loosen it, pull it, look for a button, push the button, put it down, clamp it back down, recenter it so you can get your eyes perfect so it's not wobbly and warbly. You know what I mean? It's too much. So you got to commit to just using the HOTAS and no other button controls. That is it. So that's a huge con in my place because I have all this stuff. And I'm used to using this stuff, and I'm dangerous with this stuff. So I highly recommend, if you have this kind of a thing and you got a ton of switches and buttons and everything like that, don't go to a VR. It's just not gonna satisfy what you need to do. So the other thing is that something goes wrong. This has always kind of bothered me, and it didn't have anything to do with VR headsets other than the fact that it's like a software glitch. When you're running sometimes something will happen, windows will pop up and some stupid error will come up off the screen and it'll just say, you know, something is out of display. And so you have to stop what you're doing and like try to minimize the VR and get out of it and everything like that. And it will do something weird, but you can't figure out where your mouse just stops. It just stops because something is off screen telling you, hey, you've got a Windows update or something. It's just nonsense. You just can't see it right away, okay? So that's, you know, that's a VR thing. That's not necessarily a Pimax thing. That's what you have to deal with VR. I already said this, pretty big and heavy. The speakers on this are really not as good as the G2. I was kind of surprised, but then again, I think they put the money in the optics, not necessarily the sound quality. Not that it's bad. Not that it's bad. But the other thing is, like I mentioned before, Track IR. When you have this little clip on your head, this thing, I mean, it weighs nothing, pinky-wise. I mean, this is I can still lift it with my pinky, but this thing is like featherweight. It's also got these extremely soft and isolated. Put these on, and I can block all the outside noise. A great microphone that I can put anywhere I want, or take it away, or mute it, or whatever. But these headphones themselves, they're very expensive, but they are ridiculously good quality sounding. In this clip right here, this Pro clip, I just turn it on, and this is how hard I have to move my head when I'm looking down, looking all the way up, looking this. And so I don't stress myself out when I'm in the plane. So that is a huge thing. If I'm playing for a couple of hours, I'm not going to be in pain. My eyes, when I was playing this for 45 minutes, my eyes were busted after 45 minutes, just because I've been used to this. The other thing is this, I don't know if it goes up to 120 hertz, but I mean, my screens, and again, this is all going to do with the frame rates of DCS or whatever game is putting out. DCS, really, I've gotten it up a little over 90 with my 4090 card, but not so much where it was like Call of Duty crazy speeds where you're flipping like this. I mean, the fastest you're turning your plane is like this at most speeds, so it doesn't really need that much frame rates. But when you're turning your head and looking around the cockpit and looking around, that's where you're going to notice the frame rates, how fast you're actually looking. The other thing is, as big as they advertise this being 102, I mean, the G2 feels like it's probably like 60. This feels like it's about like that. I mean, it's not a big difference. I honestly still think it feels like you're still looking through binoculars. I was under the impression that you would have like a field of view like this, where it was like out to here, you know, where I'd still see a little bit of a corner if I move my eyes, but it's still like this. I mean, it feels like Peaky Blinders. I mean, it literally feels like I've got something directly in front of me that is, you know, causing me to not be able to see. Okay, so I have to physically turn my head to see around the corner. These screens, when I'm sitting in this chair, come out to the edge of here. So I actually, if I just keep my head forward, not even leaning forward, the edge of both of the screens are past my peripheral. So even if I turn my eyes, I still can't see the outside of the screen. I have to physically turn my head to look at the outside of the screen. And by that time, I'm already looking way behind the plane. So when I'm flying in the air, when I look straight, I see the sides of my wings and my peripherals. I see everything. It's not like this where I don't see the side of my wings. I see everything. So I have a 180-degree field of view from here all the way to here, not from here to here. This is exactly the difference. It's a massive difference. Okay, you can't compete with that. So when I turn the plane and go like this, I mean, you really turn. Now I've got the H6 DOF rig, so it's got, you know, 6 degrees of, you know, forward, back, and everything like that. It's not crazy, and, you know, it gives you some motion simulation and some up and down, all that kind of stuff, and it feels pretty good. And I haven't tried it yet with the VR. VR does kind of put you back into that position, but the field of view, it's not even, you can't even put it on the map with this. This is a massive difference between having the VR. Also, you know, again, like I said, the VR, instant eye strain after about 45 minutes. With the TVs, I can play for hours and hours and hours, and it really doesn't bother me. The other thing is, I know it's a small thing, it's only one cable, but the fact that that cable is just kind of hanging down your shoulder and kind of bothering you when you have to readjust, it's just annoying. And so I don't have that problem when I have the headset on, so that's kind of a downside. It's an annoyance, but whatever. VR tends to crash a little bit more, and when it does, it's really hard to restart because you got to kind of mess with the software to kind of see where the picture is, and if DCS is like up, and then you got to quit the game to get back in. It's just, there's a lot of switching back and forth between that. I know some people know what I'm talking about. Some people don't have any problem with that, but that is. People talk about this all the time, is the blurry edges on the side of the optics. Okay, so you can kind of see where it starts to haze out. If they're not perfectly aligned on your eyes, you can see on a white line, it looks kind of blue and red. It's kind of like tripled, almost like the effect of like wearing like a old school blue and green or red and green 3D glasses. It's kind of got that weird kind of feel to it. But the other thing that's probably a big deal is that I have a lot of people that come over and like want to fly. When they see this rig, they're like, oh man, can I take a flight? So if they put on the VR headset, it's very, very difficult to teach somebody how to start a plane or even take a taxi or whatever, and they can say, hit your parking brake. They don't know where you're looking, so they're just kind of in this headset doing this, and you're just kind of like, look over to the right, look over to the right, and they're doing this, and you're trying to grab the mouse while they're sitting there kind of adjusting and trying to just click a button, and it's just very, very difficult to do that, to where with this, Track IR, you can just pause it. They can look around there like this. If they start getting motion sickness, and you can just turn off the motion to where they can just look to the left, and it's like they're looking out the window of the plane. Look to the right, look up, look down. They're just, you know, they can see the tops and all that kind of stuff. And then when they turn the Track IR on, then they'll start moving the plane and moving all that kind of stuff with it. So Track IR gives it the ability to stop the motion, as well as you can see what everybody's seeing over here. And it becomes a really fun guest experience. And if you want to teach somebody physically how to fly a plane, you can be there as an instructor to teach them all of the buttons and walk them through it in real time. You're touching what they're touching. So it's more physical. So it's more reality than the virtual reality. So that's pretty much, I think that was all my notes for the most part. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a lot. So at the end of the day, like I said, the reason that I would physically keep this headset, okay, and this is only my second day to have it. I really haven't played around with it. I really haven't screwed with it. But I will say that when I'm playing DCS, for all intents and purposes, I need to fly, and I need to be dangerous, and I need to be quick, okay? And I need to make decisions fast. I need to arm things quick. I need to be able to land quick, do all the things that I need to do. Physically having all the button boxes and everything like that makes a massive difference, okay? As soon as I went to this side of the world, it felt like real. Now, I actually have a whole other setup. You can see I've got all of the toys for what you would use for Microsoft Flight Simulator for, like, you know, Cessnas and, you know, big, huge planes, commercial planes, got the radios, all that kind of stuff. I got this stuff first, and I had this with the Reverb G2, and it was great. Right up until somebody mentioned what an A10 was, and I didn't know what DCS was, and $26,000 later, after I got all this crap, pretty much. So this stuff still has its place. You can see I've got a steering wheel over there and the pedals and all that kind of jazz. So I have the real reason that if I wanted to keep a real good VR headset, I could just sit at a table essentially with a tiny little monitor as big as something like this just to get it going, and then the rest could be just a virtual setup. So the only downside is, again, I already have the Reverb G2, and it's great. You know, it's lightweight, it's comfortable. It pretty much gives you the immersion that I'm looking for in VR. It's not as great as that, but again, the fact that that thing is just so heavy and bulky and everything like that, it's tough. The other thing that I can do is I've got these big speakers down here. So if I want to crank those things out and not have to wear a headset or anything else, you can have the plane rumble and all the guns and explosions and everything like that. It's a huge deal. Now, I'm going to kind of put the camera where my head is, okay? Just to give you an idea. That's how big it feels. Okay, so if you're sitting here and you're just looking, you pretty much, when you're looking at your upfront controllers, you can see the entire plane is right there. You're looking straight ahead of it. So you have to turn. Look at how far I have to turn. You still have to turn that far to look at the rest of the plane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect this so you can see what DCS looks like from my angle from here. All right, so this is kind of what, and I'm not sitting in the chair right now, it's just to give you an idea of what my eyes look like. And you can see where my peripheral vision, it goes all the way to the corner. So you can see how much more TV space is actually there. So when I'm actually sitting here, this is where I'm sitting, and then the screens are off to my left, and my peripherals can, and you know, when they see that, it's huge. So it's very, very difficult for, you know, when I'm just looking this way, up and down, and you know, looking around the cockpit and stuff like that. I mean, it's really, really easy to see what I want to see,
way behind me. Do not have to turn my head. As you can see, I'm still looking at the front screen, and it's not that much. So you can see it's just a very, very simple head turn to go that way. See, all the way around the plane, and my head is only looking basically in this direction, which is like that far over. So this is kind of like if I was to just move my head, try to see if I can attach this. You know, that's what it basically does. So I know some of you guys know Track IR, and I'm not trying to make a big deal about this, but I am just saying that, you know, when I'm flying the plane and I can do what I want to do, look up and down and all around and all that kind of stuff, it's very, very easy to navigate this. And again, the peripheral is just huge. So that's what it feels like to be in this kind of a situation versus the VR. VR feels more like this. It just feels like you can just see this stuff and you can't see behind you. So this is how much field of view I've got in reality, which is huge. All right, so now we got our aircraft pretty much up and running. Put our data link on. So wait until our armament is on. Okay, so we're rearmed. So watch how fast, and this is how necessary. Just change these things real quick. And you miss these buttons when you don't have them, trust me. Go to our JDAMs. You fuse instant, come over here. Stored heading should be good in a second. You can see how fast I can get the airplane set up and you know, change screens, do all these different types of things, but the plane is basically ready to go. So my radios are here, my autopilot, you know, when I'm changing my waypoints, navigate through this. It's extremely valuable to be able to do these type of things and be able to switch stuff on the fly, radios, you know, all these different, you know, little presets, whatever. Not physically having these buttons right here and having to click on them with the mouse all the time. It's just, I mean, it's for the birds. But the coolest thing is, and you'll see from on the screen, that if I was looking at something and I wanted to see how far it was away, I could actually zoom in with this slider and I get a 4K representation, not a jiggly. I know there's a little bit of a zoom that you can do in VR, but it's like you're doing this in VR. It's like looking through binoculars a mile away. It's really, really difficult. It's very unstable. But this, I can look at an object really closely, pick something out, a tree that you can't see, like way out there in the distance. I can look at that tree real easy now. So if I need to see something between that tree, a target or something like that, a SAM site or whatever, I can see that and target and get out of there. So that is something that is really hard to give up. But again, this is how I do what I do. And again, when I want to look all the way around the back of the airplane, my line of sight is at the corner of that TV. So, but I can see everything around me. See up and around, down, all that. I can still turn left, I can turn to right, up and down, all that kind of stuff. It's just very easy, and my neck just doesn't get thrashed in the process. So you get the general gist. And if I want to swap an airplane, go into the F-16 or the F-15, now I've got this. I've got all the buttons and switches and everything like that. And the cool thing is if I just wanted to use this for an extra button box, I could program this. Matter of fact, I could even program these little switches to turn on the other switches, just to have extra rotary knobs, just for fun. So that's another thing that we can do, just to add something. And there you have it. So to be fair, as far as setup, one of the reasons that I really don't know if I'm going to keep the VR at all is because I haven't used my G2 for so long, simply because I can't just plug it in. It's a complete pain in the ass. The Reverb G2 itself had to go through so many different types of USB connections on the back until somebody on a forum literally said, oh, don't use any of the plugs on the back, use the USB-C in the front of the computer. I didn't think that that was a possible scenario, but guess what? It actually made a difference. So that's why I don't use it. But since I have the 3 monitors plus the Winwings down here,
That makes it an uber pain in the ass for me to disconnect any of these things. Plus, because of the Winwing software and the TrackIR software, I have to turn one of the Winwing software monitors off to get the TrackIR to set up, and then once I pause it, then I can turn the monitor back on, then launch DCS, and hopefully it doesn't crash. So it is an absolute juggle of epic proportions, and this is still not set up. And so after just trying this whole thing to see if it would work.
So this is very, very many days later. I'm just going to go ahead and interject what actually happened to me. When I actually tried to get the Pimax off of my system and just go back to my 375-inch TVs, all the peripherals and all that kind of stuff, TrackIR, Winwing setup, blah, 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 it absolutely went straight Chernobyl. It went so wrong. It took 3 days to figure out what the deal was, and it took another week for me to figure out the other thing. This I cannot blame on Pimax. Pimax caused something, but it was a very weird thing. It was put a table full of dominoes, okay, where just every inch is covered with dominoes. You slide one piece on, there's going to be something that falls off the other side. You put that one back on, something else is going to fall off the other side. And so if I got the Winwing to work, the TrackIR wouldn't work. And if I got the TrackIR to work, then the left TV screen went to 30 hertz instead of 120 hertz. And if I got that to work, then Winwing would, it just would not stop. And this was just after just putting on the Pimax, which is why I will never hook up VR to my system again. It's just ridiculous. So it's kind of a simulator, and it's really bad. And it's as far as the integration of all these different companies, that Winwing doesn't talk to TrackIR. TrackIR never gets updated. Nobody actually uses these kind of TV screens. What I actually figured out was that I had to use all 3 display ports instead of 2 display ports and 1 HDMI port. You know, with all the HK or the 8K adapters, it was just, oh man, what you have to go through to play DCS for free. No, sir. No, it ain't free, and it taxes you. It taxes you. Look at this beard. Look at the difference how I look, man. It's like, trust me, it taxes your ass. So I'm, like I said, I'm not trying to hate on Pimax at all. Honestly, as I said before, I wished Pimax came out first. I may have been, you know, the biggest cheerleader for them forever and ever and ever, but at the same token, after I built the setup after that, you can't fix that. You know, you just can't fix that. So anyways, I hope this was a useful video. Again, do what you want, you know, get what you want. You know, I took the time to buy the Pimax after I already had the setup, just to give you guys, this is what it could be if you had this setup versus this setup. It's free. Do what you want. Hate on me. I won't listen. See you in this, guys.